last time we caught up with you, you were on Addiction Talk. You were newly sober, just so much going on in your life. Fast forward 3 years in recovery. What has changed for you?
I think it'd be easier to say what has stayed the same. Obviously, the last time we talked, I was living in California. I was on a television show. I had just come out. Now here we are in Tennessee, which is beautiful. I'm here living with my partner. I've really settled into sobriety. I think when I first got sober, there was a lot of noise. A lot of people had opinions. A lot of people didn't think it was real. They thought I was doing it for a storyline. And that noise, that background noise, has really quieted down now. Now the people in my life are very supportive, and it's just a much calmer version of life that I really, really love.
And what have you learned about yourself?
So I think the first year of sobriety, which is when we talked last time, for me was almost a frenetic energy. Who am I now? Mm-hmm. What do I do with my time? And I didn't really have the answers to that. I think for me, the first year was not drinking. The second year was figuring out what I was going to do. And this last year has really been settling into it. So I've really learned to take things one day at a time, to let go and let God. There's so many things that you learn in a program that when you first go in, you roll your eyes at. And the more you sit with it, you realize are true. And just to trust the process.
And one thing, I know we were just talking before we started rolling the cameras, and you said, we always saw you on the Housewives as the life of the party, but you're actually less social. I think that's huge. And that's something that happened in sobriety.
It is. And I don't think that's uncommon. When I first got sober, I'm not going to be fun anymore. I'm the party girl. I'm dancing on the tables. I'm whooping it up, Turns out a lot of my drinking was because I love to be at home. I love hanging out with my kids. I love hanging out with Jen. I am much happier hanging out at home doing nothing than going to parties. I am an introvert. I love reading. I love staying in my house. I love all of this. I do go out and I socialize, but now I'm learning it takes a lot out of me. I'm learning to say no to things I don't want to do. If people invite me to an event, I don't need to be there. I don't have that fear of missing out that I used to have, or that somehow the next big party or the next big thing or the next big trip was where you're going to find happiness. Now I'm starting to realize I find happiness in the small moments here.
And as I hear you talk, it seems like there is this peace.
Yeah. It was a long time to get here. Obviously, separating from my ex-husband of 28 years was tough. We had a lot of growing pains. Losing my first job and trying to figure out my identity after that, because obviously when people talk about addiction, they usually talk about substances, but fame is an addiction too. I was very lucky that I could 12-step program that one also, but there's this frenetic energy that comes with drinking or TV shows or all of it, shopping, gambling, whatever. There's a frenetic energy. And you really have to kind of figure out who are you without that. And that's hard. And that is painful. And that is days for me spent on the floor crying, wondering what I've done, hurting. There's a lot of pain, a lot of crying in rooms. A lot of not knowing if it was going to be okay. But it has been. And you kind of have to go through those growing pains. This is my third time getting sober. So if someone's watching this and they're like, but it's too hard, I always want to reiterate, if you're just getting sober and you're relapsing or you're going back to it because it's so hard, you don't get to the good part. You're just doing the really hard part over and over, And it takes a while. And it does. It's hard. And there's some really crappy days. And there's some painful lessons you have to learn. But once you get through that, and you will, even if you don't think you will, and it seems hopeless, and you're on the floor crying like I was, or in the closet crying, you have to get through that to get to the other side. And I kept just doing that part over and over for a decade. And this is the first time where I made it through. I got to the light at the end of the tunnel.
When did you realize you were going to be okay?
I think I mean, there was a lot that was going on. New relationship, moving, trying to figure out who I was going to be without the financial stability of a marriage, who I was on my own 2 feet. I really knew I was going to be okay when I started closing myself off to all the noise around me, centering myself, and trusting the universe. And I know to a lot of people that sounds crazy. I've been the kind of person where I've always forced things. This is what I want. I'm going to make it happen. You know, I definitely wanted to take control of every situation. I was the director of my life and anyone that came in contact with me. And when I started just sitting in the silence and letting the universe kind of guide me, even now, I don't want to say, oh, I got sober and everything got easy, because that's not true. There are still hard things I'm dealing with now. Very hard, where I don't always know what to do. But at least now I know I don't always have to do something. Sometimes I just sit and I let the answers come to me, and I don't have to force everything. And I can't explain how everything's going to be okay, because it's bigger than me, but I know everything's going to be okay.
Is it like a feeling?
It is. And I try not to get religious, because I know a lot of people get sober and we don't all have the same faith or you know, ideals. But there is an energy. And when you get sober, you can call it God, you can call it higher power, whatever it is for you. There is an energy in the universe that, if you're listening, is there for you. And when you're drinking or taking substances or shopping or whatever your addiction may be, because there's a lot of them, social media can be one, television, whatever. If you're not paying attention to what the universe is giving you, you know, that's when you start to tap out. That's where the serenity comes. That's where you find that everything's going to be okay. Just cut out the noise sometimes.
I love that. And in cutting out the noise, do you feel, I know you said there's like this peace, and I feel it, because when I walked into your house, I'm like, Braunwyn, there's like this peace over you, you know, like this happiness, this peace with you, but also being able to be authentically you.
Yes.
Is that huge for you?
It is. You know, I was joking. I have real nails and real, like, I don't have a fake tan. I took my extensions out. I'm just really happy with who I am. I was always buying the next outfit. Oh, this outfit will make me happy. This party will make me happy. Being on a television show will make me happy. And I don't think I was ever paying attention to the void inside of me, which is like, I'm just happy now. And I find happiness in just existing in my own skin. And that took me, I'm 45 now, but that took me 44 years to be comfortable in my own skin.
And the sobriety definitely played a role in that.
I don't know if you can be both.
Ooh, that's good.
And I really, you know, I really try not to judge people or put my ideals onto others. But there is this thing in our culture, this mommy wine culture, that says you need to drink to be a good parent. You need to drink to be fun. I mean, we've all seen the cups at the discount stores. You know, it's not wine, or it's not water in here, or whatever. And I think we have made it into a joke, especially for women, that we're supposed to tune out our lives. Now, I could go very deep into why I think that is, on, you know, the political climate and all of that. But there is a lot of reasons that I think women are kind of taught to tune out and not get into like our inner strength and our inner being. Because I don't know about you, but I'm unstoppable right now. Like, we are powerful. And if you're drinking, I don't think you can really tap into that power.
I love that. I think that's huge.
Yeah.
That is so huge. But I also love that you taper that with, I still have challenges.
Oh, yeah.
What is still challenging for you?
I mean, financially, starting over at 40, we were 44. So starting over at 44, I didn't graduate from college. You know, I dropped out of college to have Bella, my oldest daughter. My only job has been a reality show, so that's not much to put on a resume. You know, skill set, I can fight with grown women. I can throw a glass at a party. You know, so that for me has been the hardest one. So I went from having a very comfortable life, very comfortable, to really having to count every dollar and cent. I mean, I have no extra income. I don't shop. Most of, what I do for travel and stuff, I'm very lucky that I do have a public platform, so I get sponsored and whatever. So I do have some perks, but I'm 45 taking care of myself and 4 kids for the first time. And I've learned that money doesn't make me happy. Like that I know. I used to think I needed it to be happy. I don't. I need a roof over my kids' heads. I need to know that they have food. I need the basics. I'm not going to minimize that. Healthcare is great. But beyond that, there's not really much I need anymore.
And what does working your recovery look like for you today? Is it still AA meetings?
Yeah.
Is it, still time with yourself and relying, you talked about, on higher power? What does that look like for you working your recovery?
I want to say I'm not even working it anymore. It's working for me now, if that makes sense. It's not something that I consider a job. In the beginning, it kind of was. It was something that I had to do when it was painful. And now it's something I get to do, and I'm so grateful. I do meetings. I don't do them as much as I did in the beginning. I was going to 1 or 2 a day, sometimes 3. And I would, when I was first getting sober, I would sit on my hands. I remember sitting on my hands because I knew if I was sitting on them, I couldn't pick up a drink. And even though I didn't have alcohol in the house, so I had to sit on my hands. Like, I know it doesn't make sense looking back, but at the time, that's what I had to do. I don't have to sit on my hands anymore. Now I can talk with them. But this is my 3rd time getting sober. And I think the first 2 times I replaced my addiction with an addiction for AA. And I wasn't doing it in a healthy way. So this is the first time where my relationship to a recovery program is healthy. I have friends in the program, but I still have friends out. I have people in my life that are sober. I have people that aren't. I have people that do sobriety different ways, and I'm not judging them. I used to be a lot more judgmental when I got sober the first 2 times. Well, if you're not doing X, Y, Z, then you're doing it wrong. And now I've really realized that we all have our own path. This is mine. This is what helps me. And I'm not going to judge anyone. And if you're going to judge me, okay. But it's working because the balance is right. I think I've realized with a lot of aspects of my life, I've never been able to moderate anything. It's like, you're sober, you're drunk, have a baby, have 7, and this is the first time where it's like, I'm gonna work a program. I'm also gonna have a relationship. I'm also gonna be a mom. I'm also gonna work. And it's all for the first time in my life. Literally the first time. It's all balanced. And it's beautiful.
And part of your sobriety was giving you the freedom to feel like you could come out. And not only did you come out, now you're in a relationship, you had a commitment. You have gone the gamut. But tell me about when you think about sobriety and your relationship with yourself and even how you identified and being able to accept yourself. How did that play a role?
That is such a multifaceted question. Obviously, we all know that addiction rates in the LGBTQIA+ community are 40% higher. So I think there is a lot of people that drink for many reasons. 1, it's to cover up your identity. I think some people are still uncomfortable with it. 2, the safe places for queer people are usually bars. And I'm really trying to work with some local organizations here to change that, because if you're a queer young person, you're 21, where are you going to go? You're going to go to the gay bars, which is great. I'm glad we have them. I'm not saying that, but it's kind of reinventing the culture, and also the culture of pride. Pride was a protest, and now it's a party. Living in Tennessee has made me kind of go back to the roots of what pride is. Franklin tried to cancel pride. A lot of the more conservative people here didn't want it, and it really was this beautiful family-friendly event. For me,
and so when you think about just going back to getting to this place and you hear the statistics of 40%, that you just told us about, What are your thoughts? Where's your heart when you hear how many people in the queer community are still struggling with addiction for many different reasons?
I think number one is we have to sort of pivot from a good time is a drunk time. That's number one. We have to redo the narrative. And that's going to be a big deal because the alcohol industry is a billion-dollar industry? It's huge. And that is going to take time. I think the next thing we need to do is start working as a collective community. I know there's a lot going on right now where we're all starting to realize as women, we're not protected. As a woman of color, you're not protected. As a queer person, I'm not protected. I think we all need to start working together and not allowing legislation that attacks certain groups of our society. I really believe that if women could come together, we could change the world. And we have to start with the most marginalized groups. And that's, for me right now, that's the transgender community. They're being attacked needlessly right now. You know, they are being, the legislation against them is just skyrocketing. So I think it's a multifaceted approach. The number one thing we have to do, we have to, retell the story of alcohol being fun. We have to make sure everyone is accepted for who they are without a but at the end. I love you, but, your lifestyle, but. No, there's no buts. We're all human. We all have so much in common once you peel away the layers. Conservative, liberal, we are all the same. So let's just start humanizing everyone and not having othering.
And do you think when you look at it, because there's been so much of an attack and stigma, that leads more people in the community to struggle with addiction, and that's why we're seeing the higher rates? What role do you think that plays, that trauma?
I think, for me, when I came out, it was very easy. My mom's response was, well, that makes more sense. My kids are obviously part of the LGBTQ family, so they were like, okay, cool. So for me, it was easy, but that's not the case for a lot of people. There's a lot of people who are kicked out of their families. There's a lot of teens that are homeless. The Trevor Project is so important because so many people aren't accepted by their families. So obviously, if you're growing up in an environment where your basic identity is less than, you're going to drink to cover that up. You're going to do drugs because if you don't feel good about who you are, you're going to find a way to feel better. And although it doesn't work long term, as we all know, drinking and drugs short term make you feel better.
And you think that is why we're seeing higher rates?
Absolutely. To know that you can go to school and you can't talk about your gender identity. I can't even imagine being a gay teenager in Florida right now, or being a gay mom in Florida, or being a transgender kid in Texas. I can't wrap my brain around how much anxiety and fear. Even Jen is, I'm very straight presenting, so I can walk out of my house and no one knows. Jen is obviously very queer presenting. She has had things said to her. She's had comments when we're at Walmart. People said things. We've had people come out to the parking lot to say, I am so sorry for what just happened to you. My kids notice it. I can't imagine, because it hasn't happened to me, having that constant attack where people are glaring at you, where they feel like they can say something to you. She was on a hike where she had to hide for 20 minutes because 3 men were threatening to do things to her in a very sexually violent way to change how she was. So this is not something, people say to me a lot, why do we need Pride? Why don't we have Straight Month? And it's like, because that's the default. It's why my kids say, why don't we have a Kids Day if we have Mother's Day? Like every day is Kids Day, every day is Straight Day. So I will explain it to you like I do a 3-year-old, because we need that representation. We need, until every part of our community is safe and feels okay. We need every kid to go to school and be able to talk about who they are.
So we were going to talk about sober travel, because it's summer travel season and many people are traveling. And I can only imagine when we see people in most photos and they're traveling, what do they have in their hand? A drink.
Right.
So how have you navigated sobriety and traveling? Because I can only imagine that comes with its challenges. And how have you been able to navigate that?
Well, for me, that actually hasn't been that hard, because I didn't drink much when I traveled. It's probably why Kauai was my favorite place. I never drank there. I don't know why. Maybe it's because I felt most at peace and I didn't need to. but I never drank that much when I traveled. I do remember sitting in like the community jacuzzi and hearing someone talk about their father who didn't travel because he was sober now and he didn't know how to do it. And there are triggers. The airport, I hear the most from people. That airport lounge. Yeah, okay. I think my best advice is to do it with a sober companion that has some years under their belt. If you are in your first few months of sobriety, don't be coming to Nashville on a bachelorette party. You can say no. You don't have to say yes to everything. If you have a friend that doesn't drink and she wants to go hiking in the Rockies, that's a great choice. You know, going to an all-inclusive resort in Cancun, maybe not the best one. And that's okay. You're not missing out by saying no. You don't have to go to every wedding. You don't have to go to every bachelorette party. You don't have to do these things. Your sobriety comes first. And if someone's going to get mad at you for not showing up somewhere when you're worried about your sobriety, then they don't need to be in your life anyways. Bring a buddy that doesn't drink.
That's huge.
That's
for
huge.
The traveling.
Yeah.
And how do you navigate when you're in an environment, barbecues, traveling, whatever, and there is alcohol there? What do you do? What has been your secret to navigating those situations?
You know, I'm trying to remember because I don't even think about it anymore. It's just, I'm so grateful I don't drink. I look at people having a beer at a barbecue in the daytime. I'm like, God, that's awful. I think in the beginning, I got sober in January and the pandemic hit in March. So I think for me, being at home was great. I just stayed home. If I'm feeling triggered, it doesn't happen that much anymore, but if I am, I'll stay home. I won't go to a bar. I love to go to drag shows because they're interactive. I'm not just sitting there when everyone drinks. I'm watching something. I found taking photographs was really helpful. So when I was first getting sober and I'd be somewhere, especially I was filming the show, so I had to show up, I took a lot of pictures because it allowed me to be there, but to be here. So that was sort of my way to protect myself. I videoed things, I took photos, I watched, and I didn't really participate as much. And that was okay. I think the other thing to remember is you don't have to be who you were. You don't have to be the life of party. You don't have to be crazy. You can be quiet and boring if that's who you really are. I'm actually doing a trip next year based on this because I got so many people that were like, I'm scared to travel, or I've never traveled sober, or I'm going to get sober, but after this trip. So I'm doing a trip to Italy where I'm going with other sober people to be like, hey, I'm going to help you navigate this and have a great time. Jen doesn't drink when we're traveling. We have so much fun. And then the last thing is redefining what fun is. I love going on trips, waking up at 7 in the morning and going for a hike and not having to lay in my hotel room with a headache. I love that. My trips are so much better now. Like so much better. I actually get to experience the places I'm going to. So I think traveling is the easiest because why spend all that money just to get drunk?
So Sober Travel Club is in your future?
Yeah, we're doing it next April to Italy.
But is this going to be an ongoing thing? I love that.
I will see how it goes. I've never done this before. Like I said, I'm an introvert, so I could just shut down and be like, I don't like this. I want to be alone. And I've been very honest about that. You know, like I love to be by myself. I'm not always the most talkative person. But yeah, let's try. There's no harm in trying.
Braunwyn, when we checked in with you last, you know, your kids navigating changes and them, you know, seeing you now as a sober mom, how has that impacted your relationship with your children now being a sober mom? Has it changed? Is it the same? Or how would you describe it?
The younger kids don't really notice that much because the last time that my last drunk, for lack of a better word, was only about 11 months because I had just weaned Hazel when I started the show. And that's when I started drinking again after about a 7-year break. So they don't have that many core memories because I realized pretty quickly you can't control this. Because in my mind, I just went 7 years without drinking. I'm obviously fine. I'm not an alcoholic. And after about 11 months, I went, okay, I'm wrong. I am. So they don't really remember that much because that time in our life was already so chaotic. We had 2 nannies. We had camera crews. I don't think they really understood the chaos that was coming from the drinking and the chaos that was coming from the show. Because being on a reality show is very chaotic in different ways that you can't prepare for. There's just a lot of negativity that takes up your time away from your children. My older kids have seen me get sober 3 times now, and I think they're really proud of me. I think they're happy. I think the dialogues I have with my kids are always very real. The younger ones know mommy's an alcoholic. The older ones know everything. I think age appropriate, but they're adults now. And I think it's given them a pretty good baseline for their own drinking, because in my family, this is genetic. So they're very cognizant of their own limitations, what to look out for.
Do you worry about them?
There's certain kids I worry about. There's certain things that I did as a kid. I think there's certain indicators if addiction is prevalent. Obviously, the older ones I've talked to about it. The younger ones that I'm a little worried about, I have not, because why? But yeah, there's definitely kids I'm like, we gotta keep an eye on this one. But we're so open about it, and I'm so open about the beauty of not drinking. That I hope if they ever do have an issue, they'll know what to do. I've seen a lot of families in treatment rooms before, in 12-step programs, where it'd be like a mom and her kid. And so I think when you lay the foundation for that, they know what to do if there's ever an issue.
Do you feel like you're more involved mom now? Do you think it's changed you in that way? I know you've always loved your kids, and you have 7, so I can only imagine what that's been like over the year. But do you feel it's made you more involved, or do you feel like it hasn't changed you in any way when it comes to parenting?
And I'm going to get a lot of crap for this, but I'm going to be honest, because there's just so much judgment about motherhood. When I was drinking, I would overcompensate sometimes, where I would, and this goes back to the older kids, I would have the biggest parties and I would do this, but I was drinking and I wasn't really present. But I was overcompensating for not being there. I had a lot of guilt around the drinking. I don't have that guilt now. I know every night when I go to bed, I was a great mom. So now it's like, Mom, we want to do this cool, amazing thing. I'm like, no. Like, what? No. We're going to watch TV. We're going to have a small day. It sounds silly, but like, drinking mom might have been more fun and done more stuff, but she wasn't actually as present. I'm not overcompensating anymore. And I'm more focused on raising tiny people into good humans than to being the fun mom. My priorities have changed and what I think a good mom is.
Ooh, in what way? What did you think a good mom was?
One that was always having the biggest parties and doing, the over-the-top crazy stuff and renting the limos, and it was very surface, and I did it all. I don't do that anymore. I would much rather do an art project in the room and be sober for it. I'm much stricter. I've become a much stricter mom. They have a lot more rules, because when you're drinking, you're like, I don't care if you clean your room or not. And now you're going to make your bed. That's part of the deal. You have to put your laundry away. When I was drunk, if they talk back to me, I wasn't going to address it. Now, teaching my kids to respect me and adults is very important, So, more present, definitely. But am I doing all of the extra stuff? No, I'm not.
But they probably love the art project.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, it's smaller and it's more real, but I'm just not using as much of my energy on the over the top. I'm focusing more on what's in this house.
That's good. So when you see the mommy culture, the mommy wine culture and all of that makes it so cool, to drink and be a mom, and it's just accepted and it's what you're supposed to do, how does that impact you? What goes through your mind?
It makes me sad. And that's it. I mean, it makes me sad. It makes me sad that we joke that the more you whine, the more I whine. It makes me sad that or saying you need to drink to deal with children. I mean, they're hard, don't get me wrong, but you don't need to drink. And I don't think that's a good message to send to kids. Mommy
That I have to drink to be able.
mommy needs wine to deal with you. I will say to my kids, I'm overstimulated right now. I need a break. Because that's what you're really saying when you have a glass of wine. I'm overstimulated. Because being a parent of small kids, it can. You can get touched out. But it's much easier for me to say the truth. I don't need a drink. I need a moment away. Because this is a little too much for me right now. I love you, but I need a break. So it makes me sad. It makes me sad that we're not standing up for ourselves as women, that we're not saying, no, we don't need wine. We need support. We need childcare. You know, we need an extended maternity leave. Like, we do need things because we're not super women, but it's not wine. We need community. We need support. We need to come together and not tear each other down. I love Emily Paulson. I don't know if you follow her. Mm-hmm. She really breaks down the mommy wine culture and the reasonings behind it. Like I said, it's a billion-dollar industry. So I think if we started to lift the curtain a little bit behind why they kind of want to keep us a little bit drunk, you'll start realizing that we're being brainwashed into something that's not real.
Ooh, that's good. One of the things that's challenging is it's a new life, you know, when you're in recovery and things are different. So first of all, did you ever think that you would find love again, you know, in recovery?
I don't think I thought I would find love. I kind of figured I had too much baggage. I have 7 children. I'm in recovery. I also don't go out much. Like, where am I going to meet people? For me, it was more just putting it out there and seeing what came my way. But I didn't really think past that. I didn't think of a new life and starting a new life with someone. I just didn't think that you got that chance at 45. I really didn't. So everything that has happened with us has been such like a beautiful blessing. And not just for someone in recovery, I suppose like anyone in a section chapter in their life. Mm-hmm. You know, a lot of women get divorced later on and it's beautiful.
Mm-hmm. So when you first started dating in recovery, what were your concerns? What were your thoughts? Were you fearful of what people would think? I mean, I'm sure your life has been public, so a lot of people knew, but what was that like for you?
It was hard, just those initial dates, you know, kissing someone for the first time, being intimate with someone sober. That's hard. I mean, being intimate sober is hard when you haven't been for so long. So there was just a lot of being in your head and a lot of taking it slow. But like dating sober is different.
What makes it different? Is it that you have to tell people, or is it that you're wondering what they're thinking?
No, telling people, I tell strangers at the grocery store, oh, I'm sober, oh, I'm an alcoholic. I have no shame around that. I tell people that I'm an alcoholic in recovery the same way that I tell you my name. Mm-hmm. And part of that I do because I want to normalize it, but I think mainly it's because it's just such a part of who I am. And I love sharing that because it really opens up honest dialogue very quickly. The hardest part about dating sober was the awkwardness. You know, I am not cool. I am not suave. Watching me flirt is painful, my friends say. Like, I don't have game. And when you're sober, you really just have to sit in the fact that I am uncomfortable. I don't want to be here. I can't have a couple glasses of wine to make me funny. I'm just going to be me. And that's scary at first, just being you.
Mm-hmm. So how did you know that things may be something with Jen? How did that come about?
So we met online on Instagram, and she was so funny. I have never replied or given anyone my phone number on Instagram before or since her.
Still question that.
No, I haven't.
Wait, so just randomly, you didn't know anything about her?
I didn't know anything about her. She messaged me something funny, and I don't even see all my messages because there's 3 folders, and I don't always see everything in the 3rd one. But we had a few friends in common where I knew she was real. I was like, okay, I know that person, and I kind of knew her. So I replied to her just based on the fact that we had, I think, 2 friends in common.
Who?
It was some of the New York gay guys, but I can't remember which ones.
Logan probably.
Yeah. And so I was like, okay, like enough touchstones to know that you're not a bot. And she was just sarcastic and funny and a little bit mean. And I was like, oh, this is, and then I saw
Mean? Wait, did you say mean?
like she was making fun of me because I had just gone through a breakup and I was having this 16-year-old girl emo Taylor Swift reaction that she was embarrassed for me. She's like, but then I went to her profile and I was going through her photos and I was like, hi. And yeah, that was it. And then we started DMing a lot. And then we started talking. Your voice was your pictures are so like one thing, but who you are on the inside is so different. You're just soft and loving. And I was smitten pretty early on.
And so what about you, Jen? Because had you watched her on the Housewives? So what was your perception? And how did you even get the gall to send a DM message? That takes some balls. That takes some balls for sure.
It was not a good perception, which is probably why I sent the DM. But no, I mean, I had seen the first season that she was on. My best friend and I used to watch it, sort of both of us while we were doing other things. But I watched it enough to not like her on the show. I was,
she's the worst.
Like, who's this dramatic, like thirsty? She's the worst. And then I went to BravoCon with my other best friend. And it just so happened that I didn't really book the things. And one of the panels that she had bought tickets to was the Orange County panel. And then I refused to take a photo. Like
you wouldn't even take a photo with her?
Yeah, I wanted nothing to do with her. I was just
now my initials are on your belt buckle.
They are. No, but I didn't like her. I didn't like her is the point. And then I knew her ex-girlfriend, and so I sort of started following her through that because their relationship just always looked like very interesting and was sort of the opposite of the reality I was living in Berlin. And so then when they broke up, Braunwyn's posts were just so much. Like, they were just so, like, what I, way back in, I'm dating myself with MySpace, like what I would do with, like, MySpace when I was, like, 19. And so I was at a concert, a Bikini Kill concert, and I'm, like, going through my stories, and I was just like, I just have to, like, say something, because it was, like, the third...
She's like... I'm embarrassed.
Thirst trap, Taylor Swift story. I was just like, this is so bad. So I think I just wrote, like, don't save all your dramatic whatever for your first relationship. And I didn't think she would say anything back, but I also didn't really care. I mean, not in a rude way, but I just also, to me, she was just a celebrity really that I didn't know, that wasn't in my life. And so when she DM'd me back, I was like, oh, that's weird that she would DM me back. And then, pretty much like from that moment that she responded, I don't think we ever went an hour without speaking until now.
Did you ever have concerns with her being in recovery?
Yes.
What were your concerns? What was popping up for you?
So 2 of my sisters are in recovery, and I know how serious it is. They both take their recovery very seriously in different ways. And so I'm not sober. And like by choice and just, I don't have to be sober. And so I'm not. And, I do occasionally enjoy having a drink. And a lot of my friends, actually, it's funny because since I've started dating her, I actually have realized that a lot of my friends are becoming sober. But when I think of my friend group, I still think of us as like we're in our 20s and they're not sober. So I was sort of thinking, before we really started talking, my questions were like, how sober is she? I knew she didn't drink, but, is she someone that can be around alcohol? If she can't, am I willing to sort of make that change? Luckily, I don't drink that much. Even, my ex-partners, they were not sober. Even still, I just don't drink that much. Just by, the byproduct of getting older. And I just, it's not a huge part of my life. But I was like, what if I do want to have a drink? Like, is she going to be able to be with that? What if we're with my friends and they order a drink? So I had concerns around her comfort level being around alcohol. And yeah, I mean, it's just, I would never want to disrespect someone's recovery. So just not knowing if like where I was at in my life was going to be the same as where she was at in her recovery.
And how did you navigate that? How did you get beyond that fear? Because I bet that's a fear for a lot of people who, if they're not in recovery and they're dating someone who is sober, they're like, can I still be me? Can I still have a drink for if I'm watching the game? So I can imagine that is a fear for a lot of people. So how did you navigate that?
Yeah, I mean, the first few dates that we had, they were during the day. I didn't even know they were dates, and they were during the day. And
She didn't know we were dating until we've been dating a while.
I'm not like a day drinker ever, so it didn't really come up. Because one time we were hiking, another time we were getting lunch. Even our third date was like during the day, so it just didn't come up. And then there was one time that we were going to see each other where I had been drinking. I didn't know that I was going to see her, and I had been drinking. And so I just said to her, like, just so you know, like, I have had drinks today, so I don't know if that's going to be triggering for you. And then after that point, really our fourth date was a 2-week trip to Puerto Rico. And I was, we had like really clear conversations around, if I got a drink at the pool, what would that feel like? She was, we have our own boundaries around it. Like, she doesn't, I don't drink tequila. If I'm going to be with her,
a big drug. A big thing that you loved was the tequila.
Yes.
So I guess that was
and
so.
It's hard for me to smell it.
Prior to meeting her, like, I had only drank tequila. Like, that was the liquor I drank. So that was a conversation we had, and I was like, okay, I can do that. We've also had conversations around like, not like just like number of drinks or like things like that, just because it's when the headspace starts to change, like that's hard for her if everyone is on one level and she's on a different level. So we've sort of navigated it that way. When we first started dating, I still do this now. I didn't know how comfortable she was or how far along she was in her recovery. So I would like call restaurants before we went there and just ask them not to bring out the wine list, like don't bring out the cocktail list, so it's not even on the table. Hotels, like asking them to like take alcohol out of the minibar. Those are things that I did in the beginning of our relationship.
And I didn't even know.
Oh, right. And I didn't discuss it with her.
I had no clue.
I just wanted to remove any sort of awkwardness or discomfort right off the bat.
But something that you guys said that I think is really huge is if you're dating someone who's in recovery and you're not, having the conversations.
Yes.
And setting the boundaries
And
so
we-
you know.
And
they change.
I didn't do that with a few people that I dated before her. I'd been in a lot of situations where I'd be with people that would fall down drunk. And I kind of kept my mouth shut. It didn't trigger me, but so with her, I was like, look, this is something that's important to me and I want to be with her forever. I've realized over the last few years of recovery, I don't enjoy being around you when you have that third drink, because that's when you start to change. Like, it makes me, and not to say you can't because you're an adult, but this is how, when you have that third drink, that's how I feel. And that's just the honest conversations, and you don't have to have them if you're newly sober. You might not know what your boundaries are. It took me quite a long time.
Well, they've changed also since we first started dating. Like, when we first started dating, like, I'm a big believer in talk about everything, just openly. And she wasn't necessarily like that when we met, and now I think we're both on that page. But like, when we first started dating, it was really the only boundary was around tequila. And as we've sort of gotten more serious with each other, I think she feels more comfortable to say to me, when you have 2 drinks, I'm totally fine. When you have that third drink, it's not that I'm belligerent or drunk, but my awareness or my perception of the energy around us changes. And so like, that's a good limit that I respect that we have. Does it mean that it's going to be that way forever? Maybe eventually it'll be 1 drink, or maybe it'll be 5,
So it changes.
And
I think it changes.
And I think that's something that's important to realize if you're dating someone in recovery, that how they feel isn't how they're always going to feel. And I think when I first got sober, I was really trying to be the cool person. Oh, I don't care what, and I don't have that desire anymore. Like, I know what my boundaries are. I know what I'm comfortable with. I'm going to spend the rest of my life with you. this is how I'm feeling. I don't need to be cool. I need to be honest.
So if there were like 3 questions that you think sober, non-sober couples should have, what would be the 3 things they need to talk about? Is it the number of drinks? Is it types of drinks? What would you say would be those conversation?
I think what I'm learning through dating her, and like also through just like really evaluating like my own relationship to alcohol and my friends' relationships to alcohol, I think like a really core question is, you know, why is the non-sober person drinking? If it's habitual, or we just had a conversation with my friend from college that we went away with last weekend around like habitual drinking versus habitual drinking that becomes sort of compulsive versus someone that is drinking because they need to, because they're stressed out or something like that. I think the relationship that the non-sober person has to alcohol is important. Like, I've always been someone that can go out and have fun with or without alcohol. I actually enjoy going out sober more because I'm awake the next morning. I know that I can wake up and make the kids breakfast and not have to feel like I'm giving up time with the kids because I want to do something the night before.
So are you really saying, just to make sure I'm understanding, are you really saying that first conversation needs to be around the non-sober person relationship with alcohol?
Yeah, like what are you able to do and not do sober? Like when we started dating, if I wasn't able to go out to an event without drinking, that would have probably been
A red flag.
But also like even if, let's say, that's just how I am and it wasn't about an addiction, it wouldn't have worked for it. Because of how many events that we go to, and actually the number of sober events that we go to, it wouldn't have worked if I was not able to be out without drinking.
I think for me, so the 3 questions would be: 1, are you comfortable going out and not drinking?
Yeah.
That would be number 1. 2, are you okay with me changing my mind? Because there are times where I'll say to her, I don't want to go out tonight. I'm having a day. I'm going to cancel because my sobriety comes first. So are you okay if I change my mind? You might be your cousin's wedding. If I don't want to go, I'm not going to go, and you have to respect that. And 3, is my sobriety as important to you as it is to me?
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Did that cross your mind when you came out of recovery, when you started in recovery, that should I date somebody who's not sober? Was that something that went through your mind that you had to make a decision on?
It did, and I have had some trials and errors. I was dating one person where we went to a hotel together, and she took mushrooms and was trying to convince me that I should. I was like, oh, I guess I never had a problem with that. Oh my God, and I left. Like the fact that she was, obviously my sobriety wasn't as important to her as it was to me. And I got the hell out of there and called my sponsor in the car ride home. But I had to learn the hard way. But I think I didn't want to date someone based on their sobriety or not. Obviously, I'm not going to date an addict. Mm-hmm. I wanted to fall in love with a person, not a sober person. But I have dated people that have their own issues with alcohol, and I couldn't be along for the ride. I'm working on my journey. I couldn't be with someone that was a hot mess that was trying to get sober but couldn't. I couldn't take that on. And you have to know that about yourself. It doesn't make you a good or a bad person. Mm-hmm. So I think being with someone who my sobriety is as important to her as it is to me is the biggest question you can ask. Girl.
Well, someone said to me once, well, why can't you just, but you could have alcohol in the house and just not tell her. And for me, that would be violating so many different aspects. A, that's not honest, but B, her sobriety is something that it's the center of our relationship in a lot of ways, in that if she wasn't sober, she wouldn't be the person she is right now, and we wouldn't be able to be together. So for me, violating a boundary around her sobriety that she has set, whether or not she knows about it or doesn't know about it, is a line that I would never cross. And I think that it would be hard for someone to date a sober person if that line was blended in their head. Mm-hmm. Well, I can have alcohol in the house if I keep it somewhere where they can't find it, or I can drink. They're not comfortable with me drinking when we go out, but I can do it as long as they don't know that I'm drinking.
Yeah.
I think you have to be as committed to their sobriety as they are.
And I also want to just say, if you're dating someone in sobriety, there's no end point. Oh, you've been sober for 20 years, so you got it now. I think it's really cognizant to remember we're only sober today. Because I think a lot of people get a fake sense of security when they're dating someone in recovery. Oh yeah, but they've been sober for 10 years, so it's not a big deal. And that is something that it's very important if you're dating someone in recovery. No one has any more than just today. You have one day, that's it.
And that's huge because I think, Jen, are you ever mindful? Just like, could she relapse? Are you mindful?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you watch?
We've talked about it.
Do you watch? Do you pay attention? I mean, because it's a possibility anytime.
We've had
Yeah,
the conversations.
We've had really
what would happen?
interesting. Can I tell a story about?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So, when we started dating, like I said, I have 2 sisters in recovery. I know that relapse is a part of recovery. I've sort of, I had just been thinking when we started dating, like, what would I do if she relapsed? Like, would I be able to stay with her? Like, how would I support her? So right away we had a conversation about that, actually. And, I said to her, I would never break up with you for relapsing. What I would break up with you for is, like, if you relapse, that's okay. As long as we have a conversation around, like, what are we going to do to get you back on track? Or, like, okay, you're doing this. Like, when is sobriety going to start again?
Right.
As long as there is a plan and a track to, like, get back to sobriety, I would never leave. But I would not enable her to continue. I wouldn't be someone that was, sitting there saying, oh, okay, you've relapsed. Amazing. Now we can drink together. I hope you never get sober again. That's not ever going to happen. So there was an instance where it was right before we moved to Tennessee. Things were very, very bad and stressful. Not between us.
You're talking about the hard times.
Right.
But just situationally, they were very, very bad. And it was the kids' last day. There was just a lot going on. So we were walking to the grocery store. We were walking back home. And she said, you know what? Because we had been talking about maybe we'll go to Mexico. Maybe we'll do something to sort of take a break from the insanity.
It was really, there's a lot of things that I haven't talked about publicly, but it was bad.
Yeah, so we were saying, like, we'll go to Tennessee and then maybe we'll take a vacation before the kids get there to go to Mexico or something like that. So she said, okay, I just want to let you know that, like, I'm going to drink tomorrow probably. So I haven't decided if it's going to be today or tomorrow, but I'm going to start drinking again. And so, oh, perfect. We're going to go to Mexico maybe for the weekend. So, like, I'm going to drink in Mexico. And so I didn't say anything. And
Wait, didn't you call?
No, that was after.
Okay.
So then,
I didn't, by the way.
She didn't. She did
No, but
not.
I can only imagine what's going through your head. You're like,
well, because I knew that I can't say to her, no, you can't do that. So I was like, are you sure? Are you sure this is a decision you thought about? She's like, there's nothing you can say to change my mind. This is what's going on. So she said, and you're going to drink with me. It'll be fun. And I was like, just so we're clear, there is not ever going to be a moment in your life where we drink together, whether you relapse or not. So if you relapse, I will be there to make sure you're safe, but I'm not drinking with you. There is nothing funny or fun about, we're not going to go have drinks together in Mexico. And then she continued with this, I just want to let you know, like, it's definite. I've already made up my mind. So I called Sean, and I called one of her best friends, and I said, Braunwyn is going to drink. I don't know what to do about this. And we sort of all came up with this plan that was basically, if she's going to drink, she's going to drink. But it's what are we going to do after she drinks to sort of support her. And she didn't end up drinking. She woke up the next morning and
I went to a meeting instead.
Yeah. She woke up the next morning.
but that's like real life.
Yeah, but I was like,
I mean, I can laugh about it because I remember at the time I was like,
yeah, she's like, oh, we're going to get margaritas.
I meant it. I had a plan. I was like, nope, this is it. I'm done. I've done everything right. And this is what it was. And then obviously, but I do want to say it's okay to have those feelings if you're in recovery. But you know what you do? You go to a meeting, not the bar.
But it was also a great.
But I do want to you can have those moments and they're real and you can believe them. And I'm going to allow you the space to have it. But before you go get a drink, go to a meeting. That's like my only ask of you. If you're watching this and you're having that, okay,
yeah,
fine. Go to a meeting first and then come back to me.
And don't date someone that would drink with you. Because, a lot of.
But how you handled it, Jen, was so great because you knew that you couldn't change your mind.
Yeah.
You sought support from other people to say, what are we going to do if she does this?
Yeah.
She didn't threaten me. She didn't do anything.
No, and she knows I'm not gonna leave if she relapses. If she relapses, but I am gonna leave if that relapse becomes permanent. And that wouldn't just be about her, but like the kids deserve more. You know, like there's a lot of people that deserve more than her giving up on herself. And I think that, you know, the little kids have never known her really as an alcoholic, which is such a gift.
An active alcoholic.
They don't remember like her drinking. And so it's really interesting because the older kids don't have that reality. So they do remember her being active in her addiction, and it's seeing the difference and hearing the difference in their stories. You know, I can't control her, but I would never want her to go back to being like half of a person, because right now they're getting 100%. And it's like, it's not even about me, but like, I wouldn't want them to go back to a reality where they're getting, you know, 15% of their mom.
Yeah.
And that's you. And what does it mean to you, Braunwyn, to have a partner who says, guess what? I'm here with you, even if you relapse. But if you stay there, I can't do that with you because I love you enough to leave because you deserve better than that.
Honestly, that is amazing to have someone that's not going to leave me when I relapse. But as someone that was married to an enabler for so long, who was like, it's okay if you drink again, the fact that she wouldn't drink with me and it isn't enabling me is amazing. I've only been mainly with someone that was an enabler. And the dynamics of that relationship, really, looking back, I didn't realize how much it fueled me thinking it was okay. Being with someone that's like, I love you, and I know this is a part of who you are, but I'm going to have my own boundaries, is amazing. Healthy
and did that
boundaries.
change? Is that when you woke up the next day? Is that what shifted your mindset to say, I'm not going to do it? Was it the way that they handled it that made the difference for you?
I think there's probably a lot of factors at play. I know when I said that, I felt hopeless. The things that were happening in our life, I didn't know a way out. Things were really, really bad. I didn't know if I was going to be able to take care of my kids. I didn't know if we were going to have a home. I mean, it was the worst moment of my life. I've often said if I ever drink again, I'll die. And I do remember that day. That's fine. Like I wish I was. I don't have those low moments very often. I think that was the crux of it, is I can't keep this up. I don't have a plan. I don't have a way to protect my kids. It was bad. It was bad. And I try not to dwell on those moments, but I think especially being that I was on a reality show based around opulence and stuff, it's hard for people to realize how bad our life was for a while. It was intense.
We're still, yeah.
I mean, we're still in it, a really hard time. That was my low of life.
Yeah.
My whole life. And so
a lot.
Having her support was good. Knowing that she cared enough to call Sean and my best friend, and that she wasn't just taking it. One, she wasn't taking it flippantly. Two, she cared enough. And three, she wasn't going to drink with me, which if I was like, oh, okay, that's new. It was enough. I'm so grateful I had the tools to know what to do, so I didn't drink. But it was kind of like a moment of, I can do whatever I want. And I said, when we first started talking, I said that giving it over to the universe, that was one of the moments where I took back control. And I think that's where I always go wrong. If I try to control the situation, it doesn't go well. It's, you kind of have to let go sometimes.
And so, final thoughts for someone who's dating, for a person who's in recovery, who's dating and wants to give advice to someone else in recovery, who's newly in recovery. And then also, Jen, I want to get your final thoughts, the best piece of advice that you would give them. So, final thoughts around that.
My best piece of advice is be as honest as you possibly can. Don't be afraid of losing that person or hurting their feelings. Be as honest as you can while allowing them to know you might change your mind. Because you only want to be with a person that loves you exactly for who you are at that moment.
That's good.
My advice to someone who's going to start dating someone who's sober would be to make sure that they're in a healthy, stable mindset before they get into that relationship. Because I think that part of why this worked so well is that I had done a lot of work before we got together on myself so that I can center her recovery in my life in a way that's healthy, and in a way that I think for a lot of people, like sobriety is basically the third person in our relationship. And I think for a lot of non-sober people, they sort of get jealous about the commitment and the energy that their partner needs to put into their recovery. So just make sure that you're giving your partner the support and the resources that they need to do that work that they have to do to sort of stay on their recovery journey.
Because I love what you said, like the sobriety is a third person.
Yeah.
And it's almost like her sobriety becomes partly your sobriety.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yes.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
Like she said, there are times where she said, I'm not doing this, or I'm changing my mind, I don't want to do this. And at first I'll get annoyed. And then, once we talk through, like, why are you changing your mind? Why am I doing this by myself? And when she explains that it's not just because she doesn't want to do it, but she's not feeling like great that day, or she's feeling triggered in other ways. I mean, you have to be someone that's willing to say, okay, I support you.
And it can be beautiful.
Yeah.
I mean, the journey, even though it has this third person, the sobriety that's over here is the third person, in the end, you feel it's worth it.
I'm not missing anything by dating a sober person. I'm actually, this is the best and happiest and healthiest relationship I've been in. So, you're not going to lose fun by dating a sober person. You're going to gain a lot.